Just about 4 years have passed since the release of The Last of Us Part 2, a game that, although considered a masterpiece for some, was marred with massive leaks and a hefty amount of controversy during its launch period. Despite this, The Last of Us remains one of the most popular gaming franchises and have just released the remastered version for the PlayStation 5. For this review, we're packing up our bags and headed down to the Kampung and joined by Najmi, the Kampung Nerd, one of Malaysia's most prominent gaming channels in Bahasa Malaysia. We talk about what we loved about the remastered version, what were some misses with this edition, and towards the end of the video, we have an emotional, spoilery discussion reflecting on The Last of Us Part 2 and its importance in the game's medium as a whole. Review codes are provided by PlayStation, and without further ado, let's jump in.
You remember me? Yeah. You remember me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the 20am podcast. My name is RF, one of the co-hosts of the 20am podcast, and we're joined today by a very special guest to help us on our Last of Us Part 2 Remastered
yeah.
review. Najmi, the Kampung Nerd. Najmi, how are you?
Hi,
Welcome.
hello, great. It's been crazy months, I should say.
Yeah, I know you've been tweeting like so much about how crazy this year is, and it's already just started. But Najmi, the Kampung Nerd, you as a creator, for the audience, before we talk about The Last of Us, which I think is a game that's very interesting to the two of us, what is the Kampung Nerd? What is the Kampung? You know what I mean? Like, can you tell us about your channel, your content, for the people that don't know.
Yeah, so Kampung is village because I'm from Perlis. This is the northern part of Malaysia. So honestly, the way my channel started, because I was like, one day I bought a PS4. I thought I was like, you know what? Let's record and unbox this. And 8 years later, here I am.
Oh my god! It started with an unboxing video.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and for those that go ahead.
Yeah, but it was such a journey because back then it was like 2016. There's not a lot of people doing this YouTube kind of thing, right? So it's been. I think I've been lucky because of the supportive of the publisher, the fans, the audience, and everything, the community. And technically, what I do is I do YouTube and game review for a living. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Which is amazing. And I will say, for anybody who's listening to this, whether you be here in Southeast Asia and Malaysia specifically, which is the target audience. And I mean, Najmi, the best thing about it, just to plug on your side, is your content is in, Bahasa Malaysia, right? So everything is for the local audience. And for me, that's the whole point of, we wanted to start a Southeast Asian based podcast, but we wanted to educate other people around the globe to Southeast Asia. But you're doing the work, my man. And I know that your content is like bustling because of that. So major props
Thank
to
you,
you.
man.
But also, Najmi, you play way too many games. And one of the games that I know you currently played recently is The Last of Us Part 2. So I want to get this whole review, maybe for those that are joining us here, interested in how we're going to structure this, because this is the review for Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. A couple of ground rules. We're trying our best not to spoil the Last of Us Part 2 story. Last of Us 1, maybe, and take that however you will. We'll see where the discussion takes us, but we're trying not to spoil Last of Us Part 2. The second thing is this review is going to be talking about what we like about the remaster, what we don't like about the remaster, maybe some misses, and then just have a general conversation about, 3 years after the release of Last of Us Part 2, where does it sit in our minds? So, Najmi, my first question is, how much have you done in Last of Us Part 2? What is most exciting about the remaster specifically? Because I have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 things that are new in the remaster. But right off the bat, what was the first thing that was interesting to you about the remaster?
I think out of everything, the new stuff that they include in the remastered, I think the Lost level was the huge highlight for me. I love the behind the scene, the commentary, the director commentary, and all the behind the scene of game development and everything. The thing is about the remastered, what I love about it is it didn't cost a lot if you want to upgrade from the PS4 version to the PS5 version. Right? So it's 40 ringgit, $10 US.
Yeah.
So it's kind of I mean, it's good on them, but at the same time, I understand why people won't we already bought the game, right? Because I bought the collector's edition back in 2020. So if it me, I kind of understand that some people, they don't want to pay for another remaster of a game. But overall, I think the remastered of The Last of Us Part 2 is a huge thing coming out of PlayStation early this year because I believe that the series is one of the huge IP in one of the history of PlayStation, and coming from the controversy aside and everything, the story and everything, I think this is one of the best in technical aspect in video games. Yeah, if you play everything from the story, from the gameplay, from the everything, the AI of the enemy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll say like my overview as well. You're right. Like this is a very fascinating game because again, not just the remaster, the concept of The Last of Us is the premier PlayStation title. Like I
Yeah.
think like Naughty Dog does, premier premium titles like
Premium,
very well. And I think you're right. This is to have a new version of that is a big statement for PlayStation. But you're quite you bring up a really interesting point. I think my favorite part so far about getting it in my hands for the remaster is the director's commentary, the lost
Yeah.
levels, all the behind
Yeah.
the scenes stuff. And I actually
Yeah.
want to ask you this question because I've been struggling with this where it is called remaster. And maybe
Yeah.
just for the people that are wondering, the items that are new for the remaster include lost levels, which are previously omitted levels that didn't fit the narrative, but they put some of them in the game. Some developer commentary throughout the game. So when you're playing from start to finish, every other cutscene will have commentary from the cast, the crew, the directors. There's a new roguelike survival mode. We'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
There's a free play guitar mode, so you can just play guitar as one of the mechanics in the game. They've added speedrun options. They've got new outfits and skins. They got new accessibility features, graphical improvements, and that one I want to get your thoughts on as well, and as well as DualSense support. But all of this, to me, my overall thing is the magic of the remaster is actually the behind the scenes stuff. This is to me more of I saw this on Twitter, but it's more of a director's cut than it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a director's cut per se, but like the way they deal with it is you get the entire behind the scenes things of The Last of Us Part 2. And I don't think a lot of companies do that. I think I saw like some indie titles do that. I think Gone Home did that as well, this kind of developer commentary side of things. Some other games, but it's not very often you have this in AAA. So I loved that aspect of the remaster.
So I agree 100%.
Yeah, well, let's take on like what else we liked about the remaster. Where do you want to take this conversation, Najmi? What else has been most exciting about The Last of Us Part 2 remastered?
I mean, aside of all the core game, I really believe that if you a huge fan when the game release was 2013, this is like a huge addition to re-experience the story. Yes, we're going to talk about the graphic aspect of it later on, but another thing is the no return mode was kind of interesting because it's create that gameplay loop where you can spend your time keep playing on because of the roguelike element of it. However, I think if you would like to re-experience the depressing story part of The Last of Us Part 2, I think this is like the definitive part of it. And one thing I want to add about when you're saying about the director's cut, like I think it's kind of like a director cuts of the Last of Us. But I think the reason that they use the remastered name because of the Last of Us Part 1 remastered. Yeah, for the PS4 one. Like, so I think they kind of like, okay, we're gonna keep using this name to like market it as like another remaster. But I kind of understand. And one thing that I quite sad before they released this The Last of Us Part 2 remastered was the cancellation of the faction multiplayer. But that one I was kind of looking forward because I did play the faction one like 10 years ago
on the PS3, like
and PS3 and PS4. It was good. It was actually a very good multiplayer game. There's a few game mode mechanic that are interesting because it's kind of like roguelike, but in a way that you drop in this map and you have to fight with other players. Like, I kind of wanted to see how they expand it using the Last of Us Part 2 mechanic, because all the prone stuff, all the interaction with the environment and everything, all the the high grass and everything, the stuff mechanic and everything. It's kind of sad that it got cancelled. I was hoping that at least for the remaster, it's included in it's kind of like another mode, but at least I welcome the no return mode, like, at least.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, the question on the table is no return, which is their roguelike new mode that is separate from the story. It's a new addition to the game,
Mm-mm.
is No Return a good successor to the previous
Ooh,
multiplayer version of the
good
first Last of Us,
question.
right? But I think like my overall reactions is actually I want to get your thoughts as well here. But
Mm-mm.
my overall reactions to the roguelike mode, and it's a bit of a disappointment. I
Ah, is
think
it?
I think I didn't have as much fun with this particular mode.
Mm-hmm.
Although it really works from a mechanic standpoint, it really
Mm-mm.
takes what's good about the gameplay mechanics in Last of Us Part
Mm-hmm.
2 and puts it in a new mode. It's missing the Naughty Dog story. And that's
Yeah,
what
it
the
is.
best thing about Naughty Dog is. Naughty Dog is all about story first. It's about putting you in this world. And this
Mm.
I would argue this has zero story implications. Like, not even, like, it doesn't really make sense. It's one of those modes where it's just a game mode and
Yeah.
that's all it is, right? And I don't want to, compare too many things together, but I just got off of playing the God of War Valhalla
Yeah.
roguelike mode, and to me, that is a Naughty Dog product. That is story first. The mechanics are awesome, but it's making sure that you're progressing in the world. And I'll also tell you, Najmi, it's like The Last of Us 2 gives me a lot of anxiety. So I get really stressed when I play the roguelike mode because although it's fun, although it's like pretty tactical and you can like
Yeah.
maneuver your way strategically around it, I feel really stressed in the world. Whenever they pop up, whenever they hit you in combat or whatever, or you have to hide, it gives me a lot of stress. So I actually didn't like the mode too much. But where do you stand with the roguelike mode?
I kind of understand the anxiety of it because it is hard. When I live streamed it as well before, I only play on the lightest difficulty because when I play it's on normal difficulty, I never won any single run at all. It was very hard. It was so challenging. There's a lot of stuff going on because if you play the Last of Us Part 2, even the remaster or the original game before on PS4, the gameplay stealth mechanic is very difficult. There's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of, especially the AI of the enemy is very smart, and they'll know how to evade your attack and everything. So I kind of appreciate. Okay, I understand that you really wanted more of a story like Valhalla because I did play Valhalla as well, and that one have tons of. I mean, like it's technically a sequel in a way
Mm-hmm.
in terms of story, but the no return mode, if they wanted to put into the story part in the no return mode, is that it won't work because of if you play the original game, you understand that everything going on. So I believe that the reason that they put it because the cancel of faction,
Yeah.
and then they was like, we need to put something.
Yeah, and maybe just the quick thoughts, like
Mm-mm.
which mode did you have more fun in? Did you have more fun in factions? Did you have more fun in the roguelike?
Good question. Because faction was like years ago. In a way, back then I was playing like by myself, like play with a few friends. So it was kind of fun, but I didn't play a lot. But for no return mode, since I doing right now with the content and everything, I play with live stream. It's kind of like a mindless session when you play when you live stream, like without your audience, and then at the same time you play a few level, a few rounds. I think in a way, it's different. I won't compare with the faction because faction felt like more Call of Duty moment, like
Mm,
multiplayer stuff and everything. This is more like, okay, I want to like play a few rounds, like catch up, like unlock a few character, unlock a few items. But pretty much, yeah, I won't say it's like the pinnacle of like you have to play it like
yeah.
for the last one part 2 remastered. But it's an okay addition to the 40 ringgit with that you bought if you have the game.
Yeah, and I think maybe my last note on
Mm,
the roguelike mode is, no return for me from a developer standpoint, from a
mm-mm,
person who appreciates, like all the work that goes into video games. I love how they brought the mechanics from the story to something else, right? Because
mm-mm,
the mechanics, like you said, whether it be the AI interaction, whether it be the environment interaction for the character, the dynamic, how would you
mm-mm,
say, setups that you can do in gameplay.
mm-mm.
It's awesome that they brought it back so people can experience more of that. But I think at the end of the day, for me, it was just a little bit of a miss. But it's great to have in a package that has
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
other stuff, right? So I feel very torn on No Return. I think what I'm really happy about is like at least they are experimenting with different
Mm-mm.
formats as well. Like I'm really glad that AAA studios are able to say like, hey, let's throw a different mode into their games that ultimately it doesn't have like big consequence on the story or the direction
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
studio or whatever have you. But I know it's good to get those creative juices flowing. So I'm actually excited to see how they treat new subsidiary projects under the games moving forward when they already made a statement where they're going to be story focused and with the cancellation of their long awaited multiplayer game. I'm just more excited to see what else they bring. But Najmi, outside of the roguelike mode, which I think is the biggest new addition, what else was on the positive side for the remaster for you?
I've already said the lost level, but I think I'm gonna go a bit in depth about the lost level because the lost level part is something that that kind of hits me a bit because of there's a part of the game I won't spoil it, of course, that somehow linked to the original. That one kind of have like sort of narrative element to it, but in a way it doesn't because what they did was like the third part, the third level. Did you play the third level one?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So that one they kind of like thought about it behind the scene during the core game like few years ago. So this time we kind of experienced it, but in unfinished form, like all the graphical issues and everything. But still, it's kind of cool to see like what they're trying to do, and I kind of understand because if they did that, the pacing of the game's gonna be like thrown off a bit. And yeah, Lost Level is probably like I said before, is one of the first thing that highlight in the remastered version. Aside from that, at least you get 60 FPS, 1440p. Yeah. And the free guitar mode. Yeah.
Did you play guitar? Was that an element that was exciting for you?
No. I do play guitar in real life, but I mean like if I can play guitar, this thing is just a gimmick. But it's cool to see because it have that all those photo modes and everything. You can change all the pedal effect and everything.
I'll say this, and I'll say that the guitar free play mode epitomizes Naughty Dog as a studio.
Yeah.
It's so easy to just put the guitar mechanic as free play and then just leave it at that and walk away. They went through multiple character models that they had to animate for the guitar. They have multiple guitars. They don't only have multiple guitars, they have multiple filters on the guitar. So you can make the guitar sound like if you really play with the mechanics of it, you can make it sound a certain way.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, like the presentation of it is beautiful and it's amazing. And that to me is Naughty Dog. Is that they won't settle for anything less, even if it's a very simple concept. So I also feel conflicted about this as well because I actually want to spend time trying to play like a Blink-182 song or like something. It is still a little bit challenging to like move around, but to me it's a statement. And I think you bring up a really interesting point where for the upgrade price, this product to me is for people that have already played Last of Us Part 2 or it's their first time coming in and they want to experience everything and they want to make use of the entire gamut of what Naughty Dog is offering. That's what it is at the end of the day. So all these things are cherry on top. It's not the cake. The cake is already the base game, right? So it's just so fascinating to see how they like candy dip the cherry, how they make the cherry like super sparkly or whatever. So it's like very noticeable. But I think it's interesting. And I mean, my last like thing on that is the lost levels, like you brought up. I think what I love about this is that the whole point of the remaster for me is to give you an appreciation for Naughty Dog. It's to give you an appreciation of the creative process of The Last of Us.
Exactly.
Because it's a very, very story-oriented, environmentally, oriented, just a world that is so iconic to gamers. Even just hearing, I think there's a quote like that Lost Levels developer commentary, right? Like Neil Druckmann says himself, like, I want you to experience this game like a novel. And here's the references, here's how we structure this, and here's, all these things where when you hear the creators talk about their game, I have such a greater appreciation of the creative process of The Last of Us Part 2. But then also there's like really funny things. I don't know if you played the developer commentary mode in the beginning, but there was a moment where Ellie takes Shimmer and it's like, oh yeah, that's Yuri Lowenthal from Spider-Man who played the character, just a random character for our mocap. So even just small tidbits like that, you would never get that in a press interview. You would never get that anywhere else. You get a lot of these small tidbits of making things. Okay, Najmi. I know I want to get to the conversation about The Last of Us Part 2 as a whole and your thoughts on the game. But whilst we're sticking on the remaster, what were some misses with the remaster? Is this a remaster that's worthy not only for the price point, but to exist in PlayStation's offerings?
Okay, for remaster, when it comes to misses about this particular game, I have a talk with few devs where not particularly on The Last of Us, anything game that involves remastering. Some devs they didn't really like to remaster some game because of course because you've been doing the same project for a while. And I kind of understand some gamers as well. They kind of like, oh, this again? We already play. Even in my channel, a few of my comments says like, oh, we already played this game like 3-4 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
so I kind of understand the miss of it, and I kind of understand that if you don't want to pay again to play something that you already been playing, and there's not a lot of that there be any like. So yeah, in the way that while yes, it's 40 ringgit. I mean, that's not a lot, but some people may say that like it's 40 ringgit, like you can eat like twice if you don't care.
Yeah.
Like so in a way, I kinda understand if you don't want to pay for something that not much of a grade. But I think the reason is why they at least they offer the upgrade. So it's like this is really for the fans. This is for someone who love The Last of Us, they're gonna like it. And like I said in my review, if you're not a fan and you don't want to pay like 40 ringgit, $10, or even the full price 209 ringgit, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
you don't have to. You can wait for a sale, or you just can skip this because the way I see it, this is like I said, this is the director's cut of the game. But yes, when people saw Remastered, they're expecting like, oh, we want to see something new. We want to see like something different. Because one problem that I can see with The Last of Us Part 2 was because I think it was few years ago they released the PS5 patch for the PS4 version, right? So it's already supported like 60 FPS before. I think 60 FPS or 4K. I kind of forget the
Yeah, but it was definitely
upgrade.
an upgraded for PS5.
Yeah, and I saw the Digital Foundry comparison, and yeah, there was not much.
Yeah, and
But
go ahead.
but what I love is there's a 1440p upgrade with 60 FPS. I try with the 1440p monitor,
Oh.
and it was good. It looks really good. But then if you compare this side by side to the PS4 version, yeah, it was pretty much the same. There is this slight clear shadow and everything. But I mean, if you already experienced it on PS4, you're not gonna see much of the difference anyway.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. Like,
Yeah.
it's don't buy this game. Don't buy the remastered if you think you're gonna get a major graphical upgrade.
Yeah.
That's not the point of the remaster. Which is where I have issue with the naming of it. I get the marketing thing. But Najmi, I have a question for you. I mean, where do you stand on the concept of remasters? You personally, right? Like,
Good
because
question.
I think I have some thoughts on it as it relates to Last of Us Part 2. But what are your thoughts on the industry so far and remastering games? Because when Last of Us 1, I think, was remastered as well, there was a lot of discourse in not only the journal community but general gaming community. It's like, why? Like, how many? It's a joke, right? How many times are Naughty Dog gonna remaster Last of Us? But where do you stand on this?
Here's the thing. I think Remaster is a good way of re-releasing a game and for a new audience one and for a fan. In a way that I often say in my videos, I say if you don't want to play, you don't have to pay for it. Like you don't have to buy it. But in a way, I kind of understand that they often whenever a studio release a remaster of a game, they wanted to we want something new, right? But I kind of understand for The Last of Us. For this, we're talking about The Last of Us specific. We don't know the budget of the game, but I can see how much Sony already spent on this IP, and they're gonna milk it. They're gonna milk it hard. So I'm not surprised, but I understand that if people wanted to like The Last One Part 3, of course, I know you want the continuation of the story. And recently, I think we got some input about Nedradman about the ending. I think did you saw it?
No.
There's a thought about him being he wanted to change a bit the ending, but somehow they made no spoiler.
Yeah.
They make it what it is a few years ago. So there was a thought about a different ending.
Got it.
But then I kind of like for this IP, like yes, they do make it, but I understand because it costs a lot. And also because of the recent The Last of Us HBO TV series as well. So I think it's a good time to bring back something that people can re-experience, The Last of Us. And of course, again, I said it time and time again, this is for a fan. This is really for a fan, really.
No, I think you nailed it. I think when you
Yeah.
ask if anybody asked the question, who is this for? It's for
Yeah.
people who love The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah.
And it's people who love, I know there are people who like The Last of Us and don't like Part 2 and,
Yeah.
that kind of scenario. But for me, it is the super fan package. If you want to know everything behind the scenes, if you want to get all of that context, if you want to get even just looking through the concept art, like for
Yeah.
me, it's a celebration of video game development. And I also think remasters as a concept for me is also related to video game preservation, because every console generation you leave behind a whole catalog of games. I know we're getting to a stage in the industry where we are able to play backwards compatible games, or platforms like Xbox that are making sure that you get all the games at the offset, or even with PlayStation as well now getting their older catalog. But this is a celebration because I'll just say one example. During the developers commentary, they often brought up their concept artists. It was like, oh yeah, did you know that the jacket is this way? That was idea from our concept or our character designer, right? And to me, as a to think that an average casual gamer would potentially turn on director's commentary mode and hear that, to have a greater appreciation for video game development, that is the purpose of these kinds of director's cut-ish remastered. It's to highlight the people that are also making the work and make sure their work goes noticed in a major AAA in your face kind of way. Fascinating discussion on remasters and the purpose of it, but you're nailing it. My philosophy on it is it's there if you want it. It's there for a new audience. I know from a resourcing perspective, it might inhibit a studio from doing other projects to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, I love that it gives people options. And for The Last of Us, please go.
Yeah, quick question. If let's say the remastered, like they add in the lost level and everything, like what if your take, if they include that in the base game like 4 years ago?
That's really interesting. I don't know, but because I think they bring up a really interesting one where it's it doesn't fit the narrative. It is just a bit off, but the philosophy of it fits the greater scheme of things. Because it's funny, now that I played the remastered, all the lost levels are canon to me. Right? Or even some of the developers' commentary, it's that's what I think about when I think about The Last of Us Part 2. I don't differentiate it from okay, base game versus none of the commentary, you know what I mean? So I don't know, what do you think about that?
I mean, it's a good conversation, but when it comes to game development, we don't know what happens behind the scenes. So yeah, I would love to be include all those things before, but I guess it's kind of pattern, in pattern level in content creator. So when you pay more, you get more stuff in the way, behind the scenes stuff and everything.
Yeah. I think we're pretty much of the same, from the same perspective here. This is for fans. This is
exactly.
added benefits. Whether you talk about the new modes, whether you talk about all the different additions, it is to me, this is the definitive Last of Us Part 2 product, right? And you get everything here. But Najmi, I want to have a conversation about The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2 as we kind of end our conversation here, because I'm happy to talk about the remaster, and I think it's awesome. But what I find very fascinating, and maybe we can get into somewhat spoilery discussion here, but I genuinely want to talk to people who experienced the game 3 years ago and how you feel towards the game now. We're 3 years after The Last of Us Part 2, not just talk about the remaster. Where does this game sit in your, ranking of video games? Do you have any reflections now after playing a little bit of the game after 3 years? What were your original thoughts for people who haven't seen your initial review? Because I think your initial review was really good for The Last of Us Part 2, a couple of
Yeah, I personally love The Last of Us Part 2, even 4 years ago, even till now. I think it's subvert your expectation, but the way what happened is 4 years ago, the I'm gonna say the problem, but what happened because of the leak. The leak caused everything that make it kind of people have this sort of expectation when because the way I see The Last of Us is the problem is because it's a game. if you make something, this is kind of going to spoiler totally, but I won't say what happened. But the way what happened early part of the game on The Last of Us Part 2, I think people are trying to, because when you play a game, you are becoming the character. Like you're thinking if you are Joel, you are Ellie. And when you, because it's a game, you often say that, oh, I won't say that, Joe won't say that, because that's me, right? That's because I'm playing the character. But the way I see, I have this conversation with Izzat from Axis as well. He said that when you play The Last of Us, be it The Last of Us Part 1 or Part 2, you have to accept the fact that this is not an RPG. This is a playable film. So when it comes to the story, you have to accept everything the Naughty Dog want to tell you the story. Is yes, it's either you're going to like it or not, but in a way that you have to accept that every action what they did in the game, you have no control of it. So when it comes that is sort of become a subjective topic because of do you like what they did with the story and whatnot. And what I can see is back then it kinda the problem because of the leak is kinda like subvert people expectation because people wanted, okay, for the second part we want to keep playing as Joe, and they keep showing the trailers of Joe's and everything, right? And then what happened in the part 1 and part 2 end up leak, and people was like, no, this is not what we are looking. But this is why I like it. I saw one of the review a few years ago. I think it was Girlfriend review.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite review of The Last of Us Part 2. Yeah.
She talked about when it comes to character and IP, what Naughty Dog did was they didn't milk the character Joel. Right. Again, this is kind of like spoiling. I think it's okay to talk about.
No, I think we should talk about it. I think we should talk about spoilers. Like, look, if you're at this point and you haven't played Last of Us Part 2, like this is for the people that have played Last of Us Part 2. Let's have a discussion about it. Yeah, let's go full spoiler here.
Yeah. When they kill off Joel, I think it was kind of like a statement that Naughty Dog saying, you know, like Game of Thrones, like anybody can die, like, because this is a cruel world. I think what they did is something unique because of this shows that this is not your typical shonen, The Last of Us, oh, I'm gonna be the hero and everything. And if you play The Last of Us Part 1, you know that Joel is not a good person. This is the consequences of him, of his action during the end of The Last of Us Part 1. I think the way people see it, because we play as Joel and Ellie in The Last of Us Part 1, so we have more relatable on the character side of them instead of Abby, because of course we play a bit of Abby in The Last of Us Part 2, but we didn't play her as in The Last of Us Part 1, so we didn't see her character growth. Only we see later after Joel got killed.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the reason why people hate it. But I think if you play again after 3 years, and I saw a lot of comments as well that people started to accept that because people they finished the game and everything, said that yes, this is a cool world, and this is, if you, for example, if you Abby, like someone kill your dad, you of course will get mad as well, because this come to a discussion about empathy and everything. But I feels that The Last of Us Part 2 really push the expectation somewhere that not typically most IP or even story or cinematic or film do most of the time. So yeah, that's why I think it's a masterpiece, really.
Yeah, I'm same with you, and I think just to give everybody's context, like I defend The Last of Us Part 2, like, with every ounce of my body. I know it's not for everybody, but every single time I hear somebody be like, I don't want to play it because XYZ, it's like, play it. The point of this medium is to put you in the shoes of somebody else, and what I think Naughty Dog does beautifully, and you nailed it, right? You're playing a bad character. Ellie is a bad character. You know what I mean? Abby is a bad character. Like, the characters in the world of The Last of Us are bad people, but it's more about what Naughty Dog is trying to tell you about what the story is trying to say, right? So I love maybe The Last of Us, and this is a fascinating discussion because I only got this from the remaster, right? Where during the developer commentary, but I was listening to the Game Maker's Toolkit podcasts with Brian Itahara on Spider-Man, right? When Spider-Man 2 came out. And he said at Insomniac, they look at the opening 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes as you need to hook the audience. You need to make it the biggest possible thing. In Spider-Man 2, you start out with the Sandman boss fight, right? And everything about it is cinematic, it's great, it's punchy, it's big, right? Because they want to hook the audience. Naughty Dog, and Neil Druckmann said this on his developer commentary. He said the point of not going with that approach is that they want to respect the character and respect where people are in the story and build a moment that's in service for the story. The game starts with a very solemn monologue. He's fixing the guitar. He's sharing his thoughts to Tommy, and it starts with a very soft intro, a horse ride in the vistas, right? To me, that is the epitome of what Naughty Dog is doing in the AAA space. That's way different than any other AAA developer. And to me, why I also think this game is a masterpiece, because art is supposed to challenge your feelings. Art is supposed to teach you something new. Art is supposed to be, something that is, again, it doesn't have to always be a happy story. It doesn't have to be something that follows the mold. It's supposed to challenge, right? And to me, that's what I think Naughty Dog does best, and it's epitomized here in Part 2. And I will say, Najmi, I think you nailed it. Like the people, like the whole, the balls that they have to do what they do is just something that even if you don't like it, you have to respect it. Right? Do you have any other thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2, The Last of Us?
Something interesting, because we were talking about The Last of Us Part 2 3 years later. I think what this game did was something. It created a conversation. There is, even right now we're still talking about. Even about the remastered, but the story itself is something that people keep talking about, even after all these years. And yes, if you want to compare the whole plot between The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2, of course I'm gonna prefer The Last of Us Part 1 better, because it's less depressing.
Interesting.
Yeah, because when I playing The Last of Us Part 2 again remastered last month, and I was like, it is very depressing story, but in a way it tells a very good story about a broken world, really, like after the apocalypse, and
broken people
as well. And when I play like a few sessions. I really like whenever they flashback to the conversation between Ellie and Joel, all the birthday gift, all the moment where they fight and they talk about the what happened in the ending of The Last of Us Part 1. The Last of Us Part 1. It's kind of remind me of a story about self-discovery in a way.
Yeah.
I really like the way that Naughty Dog tell the story as well, of putting people on Abby's shoes as well. It's kind of sad to see that people judge it early on because of the leak. And I think if the leak doesn't happen, I think the game gonna get a better recognition a few years ago. And I think by now it's died down a bit with all those negative things. But yeah, Naughty Dog problem right now is because they keep releasing a remake, remaster, and they have a whole another issue because of that.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The conversation has changed slightly. There's less pitchforks, and I think the leak was part of it. But I also think beyond the leak, man, it's like the stuff that they do in the game. Like, even as somebody who loves it, it hurts me, right? Like, and it really breaks me. Like, where you're doing something you don't want to do. That's the point of games. You're not just reading a story, you're not just watching a movie. You have active agency. I think, again, in this remaster during the developer's commentary, there's a scene where you have to brutally kill another character as Ellie. And it could have easily be done as a cutscene, but they make you press square. They make you feel that rage, because the whole point of this medium is to put yourself in the shoes of the people that are in this story. I will say, Najmi, that like I think you're again, like I love your thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2, and I think for me it's like this game will forever be part of the conversation in games. And I love how it's going in different directions now. But again, like I'm just thinking of moments where I think Naughty Dog also does it to themselves, where even the way they teased. I don't know if you remember one of the early trailers where
Yeah,
you get they like have Ellie and they show a certain character, but that
Yeah.
character is not, and
Yeah.
what actually happens is just that is masterful to me, and it's like it really like subverts the expectations. I want to go back to what you said about that, and that to me is what's so beautiful about how they treat this. But I think the larger prop should be that Sony believes in it.
Mm-mm.
You know, I know it's a cash money maker and all that kind of stuff, and the TV show is successful, the game's successful, all that kind of stuff. But the fact that Sony believes and trusts Naughty Dog to make this type of art is just the best thing in the industry for me. You know what I mean? At a AAA level, at the highest caliber of games, you're having a developer challenge everything, which I think is fascinating.
Adding to that, what your thought about if, let's say, they're making The Last of Us Part 3?
That's a great question. Well, I'll end my like Last of Us Part 2 thing by saying, I want to go back to what you said, but like I get very emotional when I think about The Last of Us Part 2. I played it once. I had such an emotional reaction throughout it, and I did love the game, even though it's funny, right? Because you hate the game, but you love it. You might hate the story of the moments, but at the end of the day, I do love it. I couldn't play The Last of Us Part 2 when it got they released the PlayStation 5 patch because I felt genuinely sad, and I feel very emotional when I think about The Last of Us Part 2. Where it ends and what the direction is moving forward, I think there is story to tell. I trust, the team, just what they did in Last of Us Part 1, what they did in Last of Us Part 2. If they do a Part 3, I trust that they're going to tell a story that might be even more heartbreaking and more fascinating than the second. But it's one of those things where you don't need a sequel. What this game is trying to tell you right now already has so much emotional impact and so much weight and so much to think about that it's not necessary. I'm not clamoring for it, but it just goes to show that I bet if they do, they will have more to say. Because you can tell that they're trying to say something here, but I think they can go even further. What are your thoughts on sequels, and do you think that they would go ahead with The Last of Us Part 3, or what's your mind?
I think they will, because because one, people asking for it, and two, sells a lot.
Yeah.
People love The Last of Us, and one thing that I saw when I was browsing my store page, like on the PS5, I have a few hundreds of friends on PSN because I randomly approve them. And I saw because I checked this. Because
I think I saw your tweet about this.
Yeah. I checked with all the other games, like there's a few, like 3 or 30 people pre-order some title. Like for The Last of Us Part 2, there was 206. I forgot to take a screenshot. There was 206 friends that pre-ordered the game.
Oh.
And that was like, in Malaysia alone, in my friend list alone, 200 people pre-ordered the game. So yeah, people love The Last of Us series. And one thing I wanted to add about The Last of Us Part 2 was the reason that the game really hits you and the most depressing way, because it was released during the pandemic. I think it's really boils down to the part where you are in very depressing situation and you're playing a very depressing game, and it's a conversation that I didn't think a lot of people talk about because it's about pandemic game. Yeah,
I mean, they had to change the name of Outbreak Day, right?
And another thing is, after playing it the remastered one, it is a bit relatable to me because I lost my father a few years ago. After like experiencing the early situation, it's kind of hit me different, and that's why I have to say that I did not finish the remastered version because it was too depressing. Well, yes, I finished the game like 3 years ago, but this time around I was like, when the moment where Joel told Ellie about the ending of The Last of Us Part 1, I was like, okay, I wanted to stop here.
Yeah, man, and I think that's very real, and that's why I love these discussions. That's why I love video games as a medium. But like, it really makes us look in the mirror, and that's what I think like Naughty Dog does, and I think art does, and video games do. Right? Whether we have similar moments or different moments, it's like it moves you, right? And it reminds you of real moments in life, and it's just like, man, I can't imagine what that like I have an emotional reaction to The Last of Us Part 2, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine what yours is, right? But
Yeah.
it's just insane to think about. But what I think is interesting that you said is like, yeah, you're right. The world is a bit more in a positive space right now compared to the pandemic. And when I finished The Last of Us, because I played through the whole thing again, right? Even though I didn't think I could or wanted to, I just went ahead with it. I found so much more positive on the second playthrough of the game.
Yeah.
Where the first playthrough of the game, it's all about the depression, it's all about the negative, it's all about the being torn.
Yeah.
When I finished The Last of Us Part 2 this time around, now when I think about The Last of Us Part 2 is the optimism. And it's so ironic because there's not a lot of optimistic thoughts about it, right? But I think about, the moment where you flash back with Abby and her dad.
Yeah.
And again, like it's like the giraffe moment kind of thing.
That's
Beautiful to me. I think about Santa Barbara. Terrible like area, very hard level to play through, very brutal level to play through. But the concept of even just hearing that there is hope, like getting to where the game ends up, like it's so heartwarming to me. And yeah, I just love this discussion, Najmi, because I figured that you would have very real thoughts on this game, and I think that's the whole point about talking about video games. It's not just about the action, it's not just about the reviews, it's not just about the graphics. It's like, what does this medium really do to us, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Oh man, I
get a bit watery eyes talking about
the
story in there.
Yeah, and I'm getting emotional right now, right? Just thinking about it. So, but man, I really appreciate you coming on, and I really appreciate you like being candid and transparent. Because although this is a review, and again, thank you PlayStation for sending us a code for review.
Yeah, thanks PlayStation.
Yeah, we really want to, like, the whole point of the 20M discussion is to champion the stuff in games that we really think deserves time and nuanced discussion, and I love where we ended up at.
Yeah.
Do you have any parting thoughts on the remaster of the game or anything else before I let you go here?
If anyone reached this part and didn't even play any of The Last of Us, or actually did play The Last of Us Part 2, I hope that you experience the story in more positive way, unlike 3 years ago. Personally, the story, yes, is quite depressing, but it tells a very good story, a relationship, not just between Ellie and Joe, but Abby and his friend, and Ellie and his friend as well, her friend, sorry, Jesse, Dina, On, and Tommy. This, I think, the reason that The Last of Us Part 2 works because not just the character, but the voice actor and actress, they really shine, and they really, you call it, act like a real character, something that you won't see in most video games. And this is truly a masterpiece of storytelling, in not just in technical aspect, but in a video game. I really believe that. I really believe The Last of Us series was a very, very good storytelling in a video game that deserve a high praise, but too bad is always getting like the bad press with the remaster, the leaks, and everything.
Yeah, this is PlayStation's masterpiece. This is Naughty Dog's masterpiece. And I say that in a way where I'm so glad the remaster came out, because more people can experience it. And even like the discussion we've been having towards the tail end of this conversation, this discussion is probably for people who have played the game. But and trust me when I say, if you have it in you, go back.
Yeah.
Appreciate this game, listen to the director's commentary, like check out what they have to say within their lost levels. Have fun on the guitar mode if you want. You know what I mean? Like just like have fun. But like at the end of the day, really, this is like, I'm so glad that this game exists. I'm so glad that it is remastered and is coming back for a new audience, but that this type of game exists in the industry. You know, I think it's a statement, and I think it's one of those things where no matter if you like it or you're hating, there's going to be discussion around it. But I'm just so genuinely happy that from a preservation standpoint, more people can be exposed to what the creators of the game are trying to say with the game, rather than just Twitter discourse on the game, right?
100%.
Well, Najmi, thanks so much for joining me on the 20M podcast. Like, this has been such a long time coming. I told you before the call, we wanted to get you on. We need to get Sam on the next one for sure. But Najmi, tell us all about the YouTube channel. Tell us all about your platform. What's new this year? You dropped an awesome what you're doing different this year. Give us the whole spiel.
Moving forward, I'm thinking of doing what you guys do, podcast.
Yeah, really great podcast that you've been running.
Yeah, this year is gonna be another crazy year. Looking forward to work with you again. I'm looking forward. This has been such a pleasure. This is such fun. I would love to talk more about video game, man. Next game.
Yeah, let's do the next game.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the Kampung Nerd is one of my favorite YouTube channels, one of my favorite platforms. And for reviews, whether it be product reviews, game reviews, but I think what I love about Najmi's platform is also the news discussions. I think you started a show towards the tail end of last year or even before that was just, hey, this thing happened in the industry. Let's have like an 18-minute video about it. Let's talk about it. But Najmi, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Like, honestly, if you all are here in Malaysia, want to be exposed to a bit more local content, local narratives, and people bringing to light those voices, which is what we champion here on the 28 podcast, please go subscribe to Najmi's channel. Subscribe as a YouTube member, you know what I mean? Support and stuff. Follow him on Twitter. Najmi, how can people find you on social?
Yeah, you can go to youtube.com/@thekampung. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, @Najmi. Apparently, people been dying to get
at Najmi? Oh my god, I didn't even notice. I can get at RF, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, registered like what, 15 years ago? People trying to log in my account every day. I always get that. Oh, did you forget your password? Almost every day, because of, I think Najmi is one of prominent name in Indonesian, I think.
Oh, I see. Oh man, that's hilarious. Yeah, please go send the support your way. But Najmi, always welcome to have you back. But honestly, man, thanks for this awesome discussion on Last of Us.
Thank you.
Like, it's really good to showcase games like this on the AAA side, but to have real discussion around. All right. Thanks everybody for joining the 28 podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. But in the meantime, go check out the back catalog. We got a bunch of guests that were previously on, but we've got a lot of game reviews that are up and coming. So stay tuned. And we'll see you on the next video.
Yay, bye.